sorry. The number you have reached is not in service. Please check the number or try your call again. This is a recording.
Are you listening?
Listen to people. Learn what you can.
What is racist and what is just ignorance?
If you've got a friend or an ally or somebody in your corner there to support you, amazing.
I just can't wait for the day where we're no longer pleasantly surprised that someone is LGBT+.
Ask questions on a personal level, do better.
Asking pronouns.
It was like the moment that I realised I was different.
Winning that award topped this year off for me.
Because without you, this world wouldn't be the same.
Are you listening?
Are you listening?
Are you listening?
Are you listening?
Hi everyone, welcome back. It's me, Emmy O'Shaughnessy, Director of Innovation and Growth and Deputy CEO of Oxfordshire Youth. We've made it to the final part of our 3-part Youth in Mind special edition of our podcast, Are You Listening? Firstly, I just want to say a huge thank you to all of our guests who spoke to us at the conference live, and a huge thank you to Molly, who expertly guided these conversations both on stage in front of the whole audience but also off stage behind the scenes. Molly, you absolute legend. Thank you for being an amazing role model and a gifted interviewer. What is Youth in Mind? Well, if you are coming onto this podcast today and you weren't at the event, then fear not, because you get an opportunity to listen to some of the leading voices in the mental health space at the moment, from academia to the charity sector, education and health. You'll also be hearing about some amazing young people who are making waves in the campaigning world and with music organisations as well. A quick overview of what Youth in Mind is, so that you can make sure you come and find out more in person next year. Youth in Mind is an event for professionals that work with children and young people. We think Youth in Mind is really special in that it brings together statutory bodies, so the local authorities. We had Oxford City Council and Oxfordshire County Council present, alongside school workers, police, health, and of course the voluntary sector, united by our shared passion to improve the mental health outcomes for children and young people. But the most important partner is, of course, young people themselves. And the day opened out with young people. Across the one-day conference, we hear from the latest in research, but also we listen to the lived experiences of young people to ensure that everybody who attends the event is really informed by young people's voices and visions. On the day, there are workshops that take place from the morning right through the conference to the end, alongside keynotes. So today you get an opportunity to listen to a few of those keynotes, and in the next 2 episodes there will be more of the people who were on the panels for the event and leading sessions too. So in this final episode, you are going to hear from a couple of really inspirational young people. Jasmine and Ether are 2 of the founding members of the youth-led campaign Make It Mandatory. You'll hear more about their mission a little bit later, and please do follow them online. Next up in the episode, you will get the opportunity to find out more from Dr. Anissa Ree Moses, who delivered a keynote at this year's Youth in Mind. She is a remarkable woman and public speaker. We had a lot of feedback about her words and how they reached people from all different sectors. So she is an educational and child psychologist, and also the CEO of Learning and Wellbeing Psychology, which is supporting school communities to thrive. Our next guest that you will have the pleasure of listening to is a long-standing legend in Oxfordshire. She's Geeta Lobo, the CEO of Autism Family Support. And finally, we have 2 gifted young musicians, Hamza and Tavian, from Oxford organisation Inspire Sounds, who are really doing quite incredible work, using music as a vehicle for personal transformation and social change. So buckle up. It's going to be an amazing last episode, and thank you so much for being here. If you weren't able to be at the conference, and you get to listen to all of these awesome people share their thoughts and ideas and their wisdom, and it really means a lot that you have taken the time to absorb their messages. So take care of yourself and see you on the other side.
We're back at Youth in Mind with Make It Mandatory. Why don't you tell me a little bit about yourselves and what you do?
My name is Jasmine, and I'm currently a biomedical science student, and in my spare time I volunteer for the Make It Mandatory campaign.
I'm Aoife. I also volunteer for the Make It Mandatory campaign. I'm the strategist for the campaign, and I have a full-time job. I work at an international NGO on the side. Make It Mandatory is 1 year old. We are a grassroots movement and survivor-led movement as well, founded by a friend Faustine who couldn't be here today. But essentially we're lobbying the government to make child money, domestic abuse and coercive control, aka RSHE, mandatory in post-16 education.
That's amazing. So what have you enjoyed about Youth in Mind so far?
I mean, I can speak for myself that I've just really enjoyed the sort of diversity of speakers and the different areas that you've covered. I think it's really inspiring to hear from so many professionals who have such a breadth of knowledge and wisdom to really pass on to us. Even if things aren't directly related to what we do in the domestic abuse field, I think really getting those gems and things that we can take and apply to our work, I think has been really, really helpful.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Echo exactly what Jazz has said. I feel like there is a greater understanding as well of how intersectional mental health is, and so that's been quite amazing, being able to speak to people and, like you said, learning from them as well. Yeah.
So what do you do to care for your own mental health while working on this movement? Because it's so important, but it must take a toll on you.
I think for me personally, being the strategist and focal point for a lot of the contact and the team as well, first of all, making sure that there's enough time for us outside of the campaign as friends, because before we were, peers on the campaign, we're also friends. So having that time to check in with one another and connect through that, but also being vocal about, how we feel and when we need to take a step back from campaigning as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think kind of really making sure to engage as friends as well as sort of peers on the campaign is really important. And I think also just keeping up with hobbies. I feel like this is something that I always say to anybody who kind of needs support, or any of my friends who are going through difficult times. I think in the world we do live in, which obviously is very sort of capitalism driven, it's really difficult to prioritise and make that time for just doing things that you love fundamentally, regardless of anybody else or what anyone else says or does or thinks. Just investing that time to pursue the things that really make you smile, whether that's dancing or art or music. They tend to be creative things. But just really taking that time, even if it means sacrificing time for something that feels important, but actually you can do another day.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. So the government's drafted a £150 million investment over the next 3 years for young people's mental health services. Do you think this is enough to create a lasting change? And what would you like to see that money spent on?
So from what I do know, because with the Make It Mandatory campaign, we have to be quite knowledgeable about what the government is doing and the funding, etc. First of all, I don't think it's enough, because when we talk about mental health in schools or for young people, we're not just talking about what's directly being taught to them, but how the teachers are being trained and the time that's taken in training them, but also providing safe spaces and safe conversations for teachers. Because when we're talking about education, we are not only looking at the young people, but who is providing that information for young people. So this may seem like it's a lot, but it just depends on where they're putting that money in as well.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah, no, I totally agree. I think, when you look at the generic budgets of the government, I think 150 million sounds like a lot, but actually practically, when you really break down how would that be implemented, I think money can disappear quite quickly, even in things that are really, really worthy. I think there's always a lot of talk about there's no magic money tree. And I think somebody sort of raised this this concept of moral injury earlier in a really good presentation, and I think that really contributes to this idea that, you know, how much money would we really need to actually give to all of the areas in the community that actually needs this money to benefit the mental health of young people? I mean, there are so many organisations and schools and community centres that would need money like that. But, you know, because of the fact that the budgets are never big enough, that moral injury comes straight in, because you have to end up deprioritising certain things that in any other world are equally as important.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think are the biggest challenges to an effective and sustainable mental health service?
First of all, like I think just stems from the last question, it's the funding. I think there's such a lack in funding, and unfortunately we do live in a society where we do have to make money, we do have to, you know, have a salary, and we do have to survive. Unfortunately, it's survival, not living. But there's not enough funding to fund professionals in the mental health sector, and other sectors that do influence the mental health sector. Funding is huge, but also acknowledgement. I think our government needs to acknowledge that this is a bigger issue that needs to be focused on, and by doing so, perhaps pledging to a certain number, since the government loves numbers and statistics, but also, you know, looking at the bigger picture of how this is going to affect not just this generation, but more generations to come too. So acknowledgement needs to be up there, and funding. Basically, yeah,
absolutely. I completely agree with everything you said. Yeah. And I really like what you said about the bigger picture, because I think instantly when you said that, I had a tangle of thoughts, because, you know, what are the challenges to creating a really sustainable and long-lasting mental health service that's suitable for all? There are so many things that contribute to a good service running. Like you said, funding, a huge pillar of that comes in financial recompensation, because you need to pay your staff. Yeah. You know, they need to have their own abilities, and you need to have enough staff so that people are not overburdened with their jobs, which is currently what happens. The staff's mental health go down, because then that's just a flip side of a coin that's causing damage. And also, I think a real appreciation for the intersectionality of mental health with everything else. I'm sure other people have probably mentioned this, but I think, you know, when you're looking at treating mental health conditions, or even just helping people cope, we have to understand that in society our lived experience is complex, because as human beings we have what we now call protected characteristics, things that are important, that make us who we are, but also things that can be harnessed and kind of manipulated to create these systems of oppression, which leads to sort of degraded mental health. And so these mental health support services really need to take all those factors into account, which is a big job, and it needs a diverse support staff team as well to be able to deliver that service that's holistic and tailored to each person. So I feel like a big barrier is really kind of the funding, like you say, and also kind of having the breadth of staff and people to really be able to understand the complex lived experience, not just, you know, seeing somebody from their face identity and their shell that makes them up, you know, actually going deeper and saying, okay, we're going to treat you as a human, you know, for all the things that you bring.
So, as many professionals have been saying, we've seen a significant rise in mental health cases in young people, and obviously there's myriad reasons for this. What are some of the ones that you've seen?
Safe spaces or places to speak about it, first of all. I think we underestimate the current generation. I think Gen Z and the generations forward, they do recognise mental health, but it's having the knowledge of where you can have these uncomfortable conversations, and having the safe spaces to have these conversations. I think we as a society, we're becoming more and more aware of mental health issues and what they look like, the forms that they come in. But I'd say having those safe spaces to speak about it. I think outside of, for instance, charities and organisations within communities, there's not really much talk about mental health. So I think creating those spaces for children, whether it's or young people, whether it's in schools, whether it's in community centres, at home, like we mentioned today as well, or other spaces where people or young people feel safe enough to speak about it. Definitely, that's something that I've noticed.
I think, like Ethan said, I think we've become better at using language to describe our feelings. So words like triggering, that's come into mainstream use now. And so that's kind of a way of describing how something might affect you. And I think language is such an empowering thing. So now, I guess, with the advent of TikTok and all these kind of different social medias, as much as they might bring many, many challenges, I think something that can be helpful is sort of tailored and responsible content creation that helps to empower and kind of, develop the awareness of young people in how to describe how they're feeling, because if you don't know how to say it, it feels like you just bottle it up and it compresses and it kind of leads to these more sort of advanced and difficult feelings and emotions and conditions. So I think maybe as much, you see that the rates of depression and anxiety do increase, and they have been increasing, particularly with COVID. I think a lot of that is probably because of a decline in sort of an increase in social deprivation, but also a sort of decline in social well-being. But I also think that there is another side to that, which is, like you've kind of touched on, increased awareness and sort of maybe more empowerment and autonomy to kind of speak about mental health and actually say, well, I do suffer from anxiety, because it's not that 80 years ago people weren't. They were. They just weren't really empowered with the kind of language, or the culture it was not conducive with talking about it. So I think now we kind of have more of a culture of actually addressing it and being a bit more honest. So
yeah. What makes you proud to work in this sector?
We don't work in the sector. We volunteer in the sector, but
what makes you proud to volunteer?
I think recognising that it's not just a me problem, it's a us problem, and everyone's recognising that we can't just work individually, we have to work together. And I think the unity and the cohesion between people who work in the sector of mental health and the sectors interlapping into mental health. I think I'm proud to be a part of the community because we recognise that we have to work together to do so.
Absolutely, I completely echo that. I think you phrased that so wonderfully. I think, when I think about the campaign and the work we do there, I think being able to work in a team and to be honest, I think particularly with the petition, 94,000 people signed that petition. That's a huge number. I can't even visually quantify that in my head. And I think particularly for us, it's when people message us on our Instagram, we get so many messages and so many comments on the petition saying, people talking about their own experiences, or parents talking about their children's experiences and saying, what you're doing is so important, we need this now, why have we not done this before? I think that really makes me just feel like so fulfilled and grateful that we're on this journey together and we're doing this campaign, because I think when you actually get to hear from the people that are going to benefit from it, I think it really drives you with that sense of importance and urgency that we need to get this done. It has to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for sitting and chatting with me. I can't wait to hear more of what you have to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
We're backstage at Youth in Mind. Why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and what you do?
My name is Dr. Elisa Moses. I'm an educational psychologist, and I'm also a director of Learning and Wellbeing Psychology. We're a community interest company that's passionate about serving the schools and communities that we work in, providing educational psychological support to them and the community that surrounds them as well.
Awesome. So what have you enjoyed about Youth in Mind so far?
It's just been really good actually to have a set of people who are all passionate about supporting children and young people's mental health. It can feel quite daunting coming into a space with a lot of different people coming together, but actually everyone's of one sort of mind, and that's to benefit those that they support. And so it's felt a bit like camaraderie today. It's been really good to hear from Dr. Sarah Hughes, the CEO of Mind as well, and some of the key points that she was talking about, and really I think she also helped to get the conference started with that idea of hope. Starting off with the children this morning, just a bit of a reminder there about actually why we're here. And then I've been, in a couple of the workshops that, again, it's just people who have seen a need and not sat around waiting for someone to fill it, but decided to take part and get involved and get stuck in. It's been really good to see.
Yeah, it's been really nice. There's been a real sense of community and, like you were saying, hope. It's felt very hopeful.
Yeah,
that's been really good. So what have been your top 3 takeaways from today's conference?
Top 3 takeaways, I think, are standing by your convictions of what you see. I was in one workshop talking about community mentoring, and there were a lot of questions kind of thrown there, but actually seeing that set of people really committed to what they set up to do to support the young people at risk of criminal justice input or having come out of prison, and they really want to focus on supporting them move into adulthood positively. It was really clear that they thought through their idea and why they exist, and it came through in the way they came across that they're there to champion these young people who may otherwise get lost or forgotten in the community systems that we have. Also, like I said before, the speech by Dr. Hughes was really inspiring and just reminding us that we can look for the glimmers in the things that we do and the things that, the interactions that we have with the young people as well. And then I think, just being around others and getting to find out about different organisations and charities that are around at the bus has been a good one that I heard a lot about today.
Have there been any positive changes that you've observed in mental health services and mental health of young people you've worked with?
I think in the services, seen today, there's the acknowledgement. It was good to see in some of my work that I do within schools, often there's the conversation around CAMS and waiting lists and things, but to see that acknowledgement here in Oxfordshire and then put something in place for that with the pre and post diagnostic support is a really positive shift and will be supportive of so many parents and carers and young people as the word gets out there more, because it's about meeting them where they're at and not kind of, life doesn't wait for a diagnosis or an assessment or a pathway. And so I think that's something that I've really noted has been a positive change. And I also think people wanting to take responsibility and understanding that it's not just, the GP's role or this one particular person in school's role, but that actually a key thing in supporting mental health for all of us, children, young people, adults, are relationships. And if we don't have those genuine, trusting relationships, it can be really hard to find support when you need it.
Yeah, absolutely. So from your point of view, do you think that the existing mental health support in schools is working, and what would you do to change it if you could?
That's an interesting question. I think part of it is about helping people understand the resources they have at hand, and that you don't necessarily need an expert to come in kind of on a white horse and fix everything. That actually there's a lot of resource, there's a lot of gems, there's a lot of gold kind of in the place that you're in, and then being able to acknowledge that and provide space for that. Oftentimes is a pressure. Schools will often talk to me about, we don't have time, we don't have capacity for this. But I think seeing each person as a resource and each person willing to take up that mantle to have that conversation that they might otherwise not have because they've got to move on and do something else, can be something. It's in those small interactions, and sometimes it's the small things that can give that support. So I think there's been positive movement. I think it's about helping us all to kind of understand that we can all pick this up, and it's not just for those, say, here today who are really passionate about it, but it's for everybody.
Absolutely. What makes you proud to work in this sector?
Being able to be part of collaborative work and collaborative thinking. I've always had a passion for helping, and I found my way into becoming an educational psychologist. It's not been something that was set for me in the way that other people it may have been. So what makes me proud to work with children and young people is actually being able to have real, genuine conversations and to give them a voice. I'm often in a position where I'm trying to bring different stakeholders, parents, school, the young person and other people together to try and build a shared understanding. And I think that it's those meetings, whether they go well or not, where I'm trying to bring those shared understanding that I can leave and feel quite proud of the work that I do.
Yeah, that's really important, sort of building that bridge between putting everyone on the same page so that they know about plans and care. That's very important.
Yeah, even if they disagree.
Yeah.
But having space for those conversations, I think, doesn't always happen. So, yeah.
What are the biggest challenges to an effective and sustainable mental health service?
I think we've touched on them around resource, around time at times, and I think around being able to see where we can all play a role and understand that we need the different facets of society to work together to do that. It's not something that education can deal with alone, it's not something that health can deal with alone, it's not something that social care can deal with alone. But I think that's quite a big thing to ask for, and so I think as much as possible working together is something that we can do. But I think that is a challenge because everyone is working within pressured environments, have their own goals and targets, and not as many spaces like today, like today's conference, where you're able to have a meeting of the minds and exchange and share that information. It'd be great if things like this could happen more often.
Yeah, definitely. Have you seen the benefits of the mental health ambassadors in schools and the mental health first aid?
I've seen the benefits of mental health first aid and raising awareness and making, kind of normalising the discussions that children and young people can have. I think there's a role there around young people being able to know that if they're not feeling great, that there's someone or somewhere that they can go without pathologising or without kind of diagnosing them, that actually going through your childhood, your teenage life will bring you a number of experiences and not all of them will be great. So knowing that there is words that can be used, emotions that can be labelled, discussions that can be had, I think is a positive thing that can happen within that background and mental health first aid.
Why is it important that young people's experiences and voices are championed?
Because otherwise how do you create change in their life? And it's very hard to change something for someone or with someone if you don't know what they're thinking. And it's very easy to do onto someone, but like I'm going to talk about when I talk a little bit later, that to be able to be heard and feel listened to and respected is what can create those genuine connections, and that can lead to real genuine change rather than kind of tokenistic change and then it flips back because there is no foundation. So
thank you very much for chatting with me. I'm so excited to hear more of what you have to say. Thank you.
I'm Geeta Lobo and I'm Chief Executive of Autism Family Support Oxfordshire. So I'm here mainly to be on the panel, which is talking around co-production with neurodivergent young people, making sure that the voice of autistic young people is heard throughout project design, service design, and then follow through really, because we hear a lot about the word co-production, but actually, if we're all honest, probably nobody's doing that really well. So we need to get the voice of young people much more in the room, sort of at the beginning stages of talking about project design. Great to see so many stalls, hear about what's here in the community in Oxfordshire, also the great productions that have been put on by the young people, and a real true sense of this is for the betterment of young people and young people's mental health. I want to do more about sharing the stories of our young people, so it's something I've been thinking about for a long time, but yeah, definitely more around getting sharing that with other young people because it's such a powerful voice. So we have a youth action team, and we want to mobilise that better so that more of our community and our young people can hear good stories and be inspired and enabled by young people like themselves. I can't get my head around 150 million and exactly what that provides and looks like, but what I will say is that somebody needs to be brave in top government, in NHS England, to say, to stop this cycle of constant crisis management, someone needs to say we're going to top slice the budget and put it towards preventative work, because unless we do that, we're constantly stuck in this crisis management cycle. And so far, in 18 years that I've been in Oxfordshire, nobody's done that. Something that we know that we do in autism family support is give time. And that sounds like a really easy, quick fix, but actually in reality that doesn't happen. Our young people in particular, autistic young people, they need time, more time than others, to build relationships, to actually trust that person and to start to formulate their thinking and to be able to share their thoughts on how they might want to be supported and what's going on for them. And nobody has time, and they say time is free, but actually it's not in the reality of running services and schools and health provisions. But we need to find that time for young people, to give them the space that they need and that they're actually asking for.
We're backstage at Youth in Mind with Inspire Sounds. Why don't you tell me a bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, I'm Hamza. I'm Fabian.
Hiya.
And we make music, try and get our messages out to Oxford as a whole. I think it's a really positive message, and what the guys at Inspire Sounds do, it's really helped us in our journey as creatives and artists, and it's really amazing. So yeah.
Yeah, totally agree. Helps us learn new skills, meet new people, make new connections. When it comes to lyric writing, it helps us develop vocabulary, and it's pretty nice.
Yeah, awesome. So what have you enjoyed most about Youth in Mind so far?
I think just the togetherness and the overall acknowledgement that mental health needs to be more talked about as a subject as a whole by everyone. And it's nice to have a day that celebrates mental, well, I don't want to say celebrates mental health, but spreads awareness of mental health as a topic that needs to be continued to talk about and be talked about. So yeah.
Yeah, it helps us do what we love and spread awareness about mental health. It's really useful. It's very casual as well. It's not just it's more laid back, relax, go chill with friends and just make some music that we all love. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's cool. What makes you proud to do what you do with Inspire Sounds?
It helped, well, for me personally, it helped give me direction and purpose. I was a little lost before I started working with them both mentally and kind of in terms of what I wanted to do with my life. And I think it gave me a form of therapy that you just can't replicate. And I think if many other people around the Oxford area are dealing with mental health issues or even just want to get into the creative side of, creating, then I think Inspire Sounds is a great resource for that. That needs to have more attention from Oxford as a whole, and that's what we're trying to do by spreading our message and music to our city.
Yeah, for me, same. It was very therapeutic. It helped me relax and express my creative side. It was really nice. Even before it was for a good cause. It was just very nice just to come out and make music with some friends, like I said before. But now it's like we have a message to send out, trying to spread awareness for mental health and how important it is for the youth of today.
Thank you so much for chatting to me, and I can't wait to hear you guys.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
There we have it. We have made it to the end of our Youth in Mind 3-part podcast special. You were guided by Molly through several conversations with adults and young people who are all part of making positive change within the mental health sector and system. So big up to all of you. That episode was amazing. First up, just to reflect on Make It Mandatory and their really powerful and energizing campaign. I'm really proud that campaign has made such an impact in a really short amount of time, and their call for an extension to relationship and sex education for post-16s to ensure that their mental health is supported and well-being is just absolutely fundamental. So keep going, Make It Mandatory lot, you're doing amazing. Yes, we heard some really key messages there. We had Anissa Ree's perspective of the importance of meeting young people where they really are at, diagnosis or not, and also how everybody has a responsibility to bring their authentic selves into a relationship with young people, because we all make a difference every day when we connect with young people and we listen with attention and presence. I loved also Geeta's real push for us to take notice and hear the true voices and stories of autistic young people. And finally, you heard about the impact of music and the production of music on mental health. So that's it. This is the final part, but let's keep this conversation about mental health going. It is so important. So whether you want to tell us what you thought about these episodes, or you want to get in touch with us to find out how you can get involved, make sure you find out about next year's Youth in Mind. Please come onto our website. It's www.oxfordshireyouth.org. You can follow us on social media. We would love to see you there. Ox Youth on Twitter and Oxfordshire Youth on TikTok and Instagram and LinkedIn. We will see you again next time. It's been really fun to come on and say hi, take care of yourselves and each other.